Hello, everyone. This is Jules Williams with the Jules Chalice channel on YouTube. This is my Meet the Alchemist series, and I'm very, very happy to introduce Sue Bailey. And Sue is a specialist in a particular area. In my view, Sue has an incredibly personal experience of this subject, and I love specialists. I also love people who I believe to be alchemists. And in my view, Sue, you are my kind of alchemist. So I'd like to open the floor to you, welcome you, and let you introduce yourself in a way of explaining that what alchemy means to you personally.
Okay. Thank you for the warm welcome, Jules. I can speak to this question. I was mute as a child, and I have spoken in the House of Lords in 2019 in the plenary session. So that took a whole bundle of alchemy. So what do I mean by alchemy? It started probably about 2004, 2005, when I found myself waking up in the middle of the night, finding anything to write on, which could be cardboard, newspaper, photocopier paper. And I wrote so fast for about 20 minutes that I overwrote my writing. And then I put that stuff in a box and sealed the lid for about 5 years before I opened the Pandora's box. And after sitting with what I call my soul shit, I basically worked through it by finding solutions relevant to the scenarios that were written about in the box, and became a practitioner of things that would help other people's Pandora's boxes. I really do believe in the power of alchemy. I see that what I used to do is I used to sit in an armchair, sit on a blanket, and I used to, don't laugh, I used to hold a pink pig, which was Babe, in the film Babe, the pig. But in this case, he was a hot water bottle cover with a hot water bottle in it. And I used to hold this creature, which I saw as my younger self, depending on what age I was. So I could be 2 or 12 or 22 or whatever it is. And I would sit with that. I know it's a hot water bottle, but in those moments, it became something that I could speak to, that I could question my perceptions of those scenarios and wait for my soul to answer. And I quite often would have a fire in the grate behind me going, and I started seeing, if I say shapes in the granite and soot behind the flames, that sounds really surreal. And it was especially surreal for me because I have aphantasia, which means when you shut your eyes, it's black. It's as black as a blackboard. And the only time that changes is when I'm actually working on alchemy, or I'm sitting with myself and dropping down into my center. And then I see chakra colors, which are pulsating at the same rate of my heartbeat. But that's the only time I ever see anything on the inside.
That's a lovely, I adore that, because people know me. I'm a huge fan of the metaphysical. And aphantasia notwithstanding, I understand what that is. I think that there are much other ways of bringing in metaphysical insights, which it sounds really fascinating to me because I've done it myself. I love to hear about other people who have done it. Was it spontaneous? Or do you think you invited it in at a particular time?
I think it pushed itself in.
Mm.
I don't remember inviting it. I know at the time I was doing psychotherapy about childhood and teenage trauma. And so I guess you could say that the material that might be spoken about in the next psychotherapy session would arise.
Mm.
But considering I put that stuff in a box and didn't talk about that stuff until much longer into my sessions, it wasn't as logical as that. The beauty of the alchemy, to get back to alchemy, is that writing then turned into, in the same chair, looking in the same fire. If I haven't done it today because we're here, but often I will sit in my chair and I will get quiet and I will either speak for about 10 minutes or I'll write for about 20 minutes. It's sort of about the same. And then I will look without censoring it. And then I will look at it and see what's in there that I can put a blog or a social media post or something out. And it comes from whatever occurs. And then it progressed a further where I would then wake up, do my 20 minutes thing, add a quote and add some original artwork or a photo. And I would then put it in ebooks or in a book.
Oh, just love that.
So it's like the thing that pushed through as a real shadowy, painful, uninvited sort of energy is now, people say that when I speak or when I write, I'm personal and transpersonal, and I'm this and I'm that and I'm t'other and which, and it all came out of that thing pushing through.
Yeah, absolutely. I understand that process of how psychotherapy. I've not had psychotherapy, but I've had therapy, and that happened with me to a certain extent in a different way. That, you know, transpersonal input from the therapist is, for me, incredibly powerful, especially if you have a therapist who is sensitive and tuned in and very empathic towards the person that they're speaking to.
Yeah.
Would you say that the therapy itself became something that it possibly wasn't meant to be at the very beginning? That it was more than you thought it would be?
I think without sort of putting names in here, I think when I trained to be an embodied relational therapist, which came from the fact that I'm autistic and I find I can do this, but find sitting around a dinner table talking to 16 people a really difficult thing to do. I was in one of those sessions and I was being critiqued by quite a senior psychotherapist who actually was a supervisor of psychotherapists. And I basically was in this training as somebody who had no science, but just was on a bit of my journey to find a fragment of myself and or a strategy for that fragment. And she sort of posed a question, which is like, well, do you think Sue, given, you know, the way she's wired, would understand X or Y? Or, you know, she just, I don't want to, if I say too much, it'll reveal itself. But she sort of posed questions that I took as a lack. And my butt started clenching and my heart started pounding. And fortunately, the tutor was extremely sensitive, and he said, look, he said, this is a 2-year course, and by the end of the 2-year course, Sue will have grown in ways that you can't see yet, and so will you. And one of the ways that Sue has, I don't want to say an advantage because that's a horrible word, but has one thing sussed, is that she doesn't see people as broken. She doesn't think they need fixing. She thinks that they need witnessing. and my butt unclenched and my heart went back to normal, and I was like, yes.
So that overcoming a potential block or a challenge or whatever word we want to call it, where there's maybe an inner conflict, a cognitive dissonance of, oh, this is scary, I don't want this. But you kind of know that once you've got over that hurdle, you'll be running fast. It's that ability to have someone there who can literally just take the sting out of the fact that there might be an inner conflict.
Yeah.
Punches, and they spotted it, and they kind of going, but this is just natural. Obviously, it's natural. When confronted with something that's fairly challenging, we have the natural ability to go into that place of, oh, hang on a minute, I'm not sure about this. Did you find that because you'd overcome that and you knew then you had the tools how to deal with that, that kind of freed you up?
I think what it gave me was a little bit more self-worth than I thought at that moment, because it was like all the people around me, I mean, I'm educated, but I don't have an MA or a PhD, and I certainly don't have it in any science subject, and so I felt that I guess I had a little bit of chip on my shoulder that they would know more. They would know more cognitively than I did about it, although I had lived experience and I'd worked with clients for like 20 years. But I felt there was again, I thought I had a lack. So
I hear you, yeah.
So it was nice that somebody sort of made that balance up again.
Yeah. Because we all have that, don't we?
Yeah.
I believe. I don't know whether you agree, but I think we all have.
We wouldn't, my perspective is we wouldn't be here in what I call Earth School if we didn't need to learn.
Yeah. So if we need to learn, that means we have a lack of learning. So all we're doing is learning.
Yeah.
So lack is just opportunity.
Something not known yet.
Can it be an opportunity to use your curiosity, to not assume, to be more humility, to bring in more humility, to say, well, actually, I don't know, so tell me. And how curiosity, for me, is so delicious for me that I want to know. But I want to know beyond my assumptions, because I know I've got assumptions, but I want to know beyond those assumptions, which is why I invite wonderful people like yourself to come and talk to me and build up a massive cohort of examples of alchemy, which for me absolutely requires curiosity. Would you agree?
Yes. Yes.
When you were looking at when you were doing your writings and then you put them in a box 5 years and you called it Pandora's box, which I think is a wonderful description of it. Did you wait until your curiosity overcame any sort of reluctance to dive into your own being, which a lot of people say shadow, darkness, and it is. It can be dark, it can be scary.
I think I put them in the box because initially I felt that having literally written so fast, it was almost like automatic writing. It came out so fast that the writing would overlap the writing. So initially I thought, well, there's no point me trying to read those because there's like sometimes 3 layers of writing on top of each other. They ain't gonna make any sense. And sometimes that was true. I just had to take some keywords and reflect on them because I couldn't read it. Other times I could read chunks of it, and that sometimes brought in a bit of shame or a bit of, ooh, I didn't know you felt like that. And other times I could see it as something to get my true grit on and work through.
Yeah. So as that happened for you, can we say, I feel, for me, and correct me if I'm wrong, that it was almost like I got an image of a rocket that you weren't ready to straddle yet. But once you straddled that rocket, you knew how to operate it. You could drive it.
Yeah.
That's the kind of image I got.
What I see it more as the bit of the rocket I can relate to is the fuel. So it gave me fuel for all the various things that I've learned to remember who I was, and all the pieces that I now feel are more integrated on a good day. And occasionally a piece will fall off. But it's like it's given me my why, it's given me my zest, it's given me my, okay, so if that's true for me, it's got to be true for me, it's got to be true for other autists, it's got to be true for other autistic families, it's got to be true for blah, blah, blah. And it just, it sort of was a catalyst. The fuel was a catalyst.
That's a fantastic segue into my next question, which was, you became self-catalyzing, you alchemized. When you talk about fuel, everything that we take going forward and we alchemize into that goal of being able to teach, because we've done the learning, we talked about learning a few minutes ago, we get to a point where, what do we do with all this stuff? If we just sit on it, this gold, then we become like King Midas, and we can't do anything with it because it becomes useless unless we actually use it for what it's meant to be. So it's not gold as in the gold metal, it's gold as in gold self-catalyzed wisdom. If we then share that wisdom, then that to me is what alchemy is there to be for. That's what it's for. It's to alchemize yourself, but also then take what you've learned and share that with other people. So that's wonderful how you mentioned the word catalyst. I love that word. I think it's fantastic. Can you explain to me how it was for you as an autistic person, what you specifically would like to share with people who don't know specifically what it's like to live with autism?
Okay, so I need a bit of context here, because I was mute as a child, and I always knew I was different. I'd no idea why or how, but I knew I was. And I didn't really find the answer out until I was 47. So it's like for 47 years of my life, I just knew I was different. A bit geeky, a bit freaky, a bit odd. I was really cruel with the labels I gave myself. And but then when I found out, it all makes sense. I mean, I crashed and burned. I had to go on a retreat for 5 days where I was observed 24 hours a day because I was, freaked out by what the reality would be.
Yeah.
And I thought that, my husband of 20 years, or my, whatever the time was, I can't remember, about 20 years. My husband of 20 years and my job at the time, and people just disbanded me as a dud, as a freak, as a less than, I expected to lose my husband, to lose my job. I expected everything to fall apart. And actually, it's the beginning of me. It was the beginning of me being my true self. And now I'll tell anybody. In fact, I think it's my superpower. I think it's my gift. I think it's my badge of bravery. I think it's my heroine. I think it's my true self. I think I was made to be a voice for the voiceless, give meaning to the marginalised, help families with the impact of autism and mutism and all the other isms. And I think that I walk my talk. And you mentioned the side of alchemy that needs to be offered back, otherwise it will lose its potency. That's at the point I'm at, and I'm literally in that threshold. And so when I revisit this video, I'm very interested in what I said about the catalyst and the self-catalytic, whatever. Trust me, you'll love it. Because I think that, you know, I've tried to give myself a fame name, you know, so people can remember me. And I've been the autistic whisperer, I've been the autistic advocate, I've been the autistic seer. I'm then now thinking of calling myself the autistic the autistic family guide or coach. But, you know, actually what I am is I'm a catalyst for making change. I'm a catalyst for making change within the self that impacts the other. And if the other is the family, so be it.
Wow.
Now that's bloody potent, isn't it?
Absolutely it is. And in terms of...
I just can't believe that you pulled it out of me. For probably 3 years, I've been thinking, how do I marry? So bless you, I'm going to do your referral anyway, not a testimonial. I get those words all muddled up. But you know what I mean? Anyway, but I'm going to speak to this in it. I've been waiting for something to spark me, and this is sparking me. So for me, fuel, sparks, is really something energizing about this, because the first thing I did is I saw what I perceived gaps, inadequacies and failings on my part, and I went out of my way and I borrowed money, still paying it back out of my pension, to learn 5 different modalities, which each were qualified in the thing I thought was a gap, right? So I've got all this skill set, which I haven't really wanted to be a body therapist or a this or a that. I'm a being that's alchemized their own failure into bloody soul gold. So why am I trying to make myself an X, a Y, a Z, a P, a Q, or an R? Because I'm not. I'm a soul which has, in this earth suit, had a lot of shizzle where things have gone wrong. And every time I've fought like a warrior to find the answer. And if I can do it for me, I can do it with anybody else in a family, whether it's the great grandmother down to the newborn.
Yeah.
So I don't have to change what I'm doing. I just need to tweak my head a noddle, give my head a wobble, and basically see that I've done it for myself so I can do it for other people.
But the thing is, I've had a similar background as a coach. I've gone on courses that I've thought, actually, you know, what was that for? What usage was it? But actually, going through with clients, something will have come up where I think, now I did learn that in that course. And I might have buried it because I thought it was no good. But everything that you've done is all par for the course. Everything you've done. I get that it's possibly not revealed itself to you just at this moment in time, but that extra confidence that you're showing, that spark, that understanding of catalyst and self-catalyzing, which is the higher aspect of catalyst, you will then be able to bring, as you're talking about remembering, bringing back to our wholeness, to integrating, you will be able to integrate these experiences that you've had that you might not see at the moment. The value.
One of the things that frustrates me, sorry to interrupt you, but it just came through. One of the things that I find really frustrating as an autist, well, I am an artist, but an artistic autist or an autistic artist or whatever you want to call me, is the speed that some neurotypical people manage to do things. So you might find somebody that's been doing something for a third of the time than I have, and on the surface they appear to understand how to put themselves forward in their alchemized solution, and it much more quickly.
Okay.
And I 2 years later I'm doing something that somebody who's been in, say, a certain community took them 6 months to do, and people praise them. Look, you've only been doing this for this many weeks. Isn't it amazing that you're here?
So that's
and I'm like, and it's
that
like,
seems to me to be, I know, I get it, but that seems to me to be something that is literally subject specific. That you have such an understanding of the autistic way.
What subject of physics?
The autistic subject of which you've had the lived experience that is not that available to so many people. So you've chosen, in my understanding, you've chosen to be an autistic specialist because you've got no choice, because you are an autistic specialist. So if I wanted to learn about autism, having met you, and I wanted to learn more about it because I needed to and wanted to, you are the person I would come to. What you've described is literally, you are displaying your secret source by talking about that frustration where people who are maybe not so inclined to understand about autism are doing a generalized course. Autistic people require maybe more specialized learning tools and teachers, which is where your niche lies, which is where there's that gap in the market, if you want to call it the market, i.e. the market as in the world of learning and teaching and sharing alchemy, sharing transformation. I'm a transformation coach. I share it in my way. My secret source is my secret source, but the subject of this interview isn't me. Your secret source is your ability to see that doesn't work for me. Whether that's your autism or whatever, that doesn't work for me. And there are other people out there for whom it doesn't work. And it could be because of autism. Therefore, you have the most amazing opportunity here to fill that gap, to create something alongside what is there. You're creating it anew. So you've gone beyond alchemy. You've gone into that level of grace where this is something brand spanking new. And when you're a pioneer and it's something brand spanking new, that can be really scary. That can feel really lonely because you're looking around for people to say, am I doing it right? Am I doing this right? Am I doing that right? And that isn't always available. Sometimes we just have to go on blind faith and say, this is what it's going to be.
Thanks.
You're welcome. This is an alchemy.
So why is grace beyond alchemy? Explain that bit to me.
So it's almost a grace beyond alchemy because alchemy is very activity based, isn't it? It's do. And what do we do with the do? What do we do with that gold? Yeah, we turn it into earrings and beautiful pendants, and we artistic people can create something with the gold. So once you've hit the gold, that's alchemy, isn't it? You know that you've been able to create the gold. But what you're going to do, just sit there with a gold nugget sat on your sideboard, just looking at the gold nugget. What do we
No,
do? Artisans and artists create something literally from the gold, which the true artistic, I want to use the word piquancy for some reason, which is something to do with food. It's that sublime flavor beyond alchemy, the grace of who you are, the God-given you melding with the human you. Does that sound a bit convoluting? And
no, it sounds great. I know the interview's about me, but I'm just want to listen to this bit. In fact, I want to have lots of listening to this bit because I love this stuff. I'm just stunned. I'm like, keep going, Jules. I know you've got to interview me. I want to know more about this chisel.
well, there you go. But you will by doing, and also being in that place of grace, doing the
You
work
say
on yourself,
you
but carrying
say
on to
that
create.
you say just now that effectively I'm a pioneer. I'm a self-catalytic pioneer for the impact of autism on families, right? Or whatever I am, right? And that that's my lane, that's my appointed purpose in this lifetime. And I chose it. Thanks. But I don't know if it's a bit like if you want a red car, you see red cars everywhere.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
if I go onto my Instagram feed, I would say that 60% of my Instagram posts are autistic individuals. No, sorry. Are parents of autistic individuals or autistic individuals.
Yeah.
That are talking about little Johnny and little Jade and little Juniper, who not real names, who basically are struggling with the system or struggling with other parents' perception of how they're raising their child, or struggling with the loneliness of blah blah blah. You've only got to go on my Instagram to see it. I don't need to, share it all here. But where I get stuck is when I see on my Instagram like this, or little bio, 30-second insights into the day of the autist mother or the autist wife or blah, 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 blah. I start thinking I can take myself into the place where, well, actually, is this your purpose? Because there's yards of the buggers out there. My bloody phone's full of people attempting to advocate. But they probably haven't done the alchemy process. They're probably doing it from, and that could be a judgment, but they're not. It feels like they're not doing it from the same place. It feels like they're doing it from a need to tell the world about it, but they haven't done all the internal stuff about when there's something different. It seems like one layer, not multi-dimensional. But then I don't want to think that's my ego talking. So then I go back to, well, look, why would I do anything? Because there's yards of them out there. Instagram's full of it.
Okay, so I think you've answered your own question there, because you're seeing people who are doing it, maybe younger people, maybe people who haven't got the weight of experience that you've got as an older woman. And that does influence the way you want to bring out your service. You can't deny that weight of experience. Therefore, you saying, why should I bother because people are doing it? But you think the way you do it will be, and when you say you don't want to be judgmental, what you're saying is you're coming at it from a more masterly eye. And it's also being able to give people grace of not being as masterful, not being as experienced. And that can be really challenging for people who've got the experience to actually remember that was me years ago. And that's one of the things I've had to do, because I was so energized when I first began my coaching that I was like out there. I was just like shouting it from the rooftop. But then it becomes part of yourself. It becomes integrated. And the actual exhilaration from it, for me, fades a little. And then that's me becoming cynical. So I have to catch myself on and say, hang on a minute. 6 years ago, you were exactly where that person is now. You've just moved on. You've moved forward. When you're older and you're coming into something that 20 and 30-year-olds are coming into now, it doesn't mean we older people shouldn't bother because the 20 and 30-year-olds are doing it. For me, I learned to celebrate the fact that the 20 and 30-year-olds are doing it, because my service isn't just for the now, it's a legacy going forward.
Yes.
So if I can see people doing it, they may not be doing it as excellently as I want my service to be excellent, but someone younger could say to me, well, actually, no, because you're older, you can't relate to younger people. We just think you can't relate to us. And I go, fine, okay. I'm around to support you younger ones going forward, rather than coming from a place of, ego, and saying, oh, well, you don't know what you're talking about because you're young. So for me, the older person coming into this work, for me, the purpose for me is to support the younger ones who are doing it as well.
Yeah, no, I do that I do reply in a, I've given a couple of them my ebook, do you know what I mean? I do, but I also sort of think, well, is the market getting saturated with, there's a whole bookshelves on,
So exactly. They are. It is getting saturated. However, you still have your secret sauce, because no one's doing exactly what you're doing. Having had the alchemical experience, having understood about catalysts, having understood about the learning and the teaching beyond the learning at that level, at that higher wisdom level, at that metaphysical level as well. So it's opening up space for the people who might be doing it, and they might be saturated the market. But you can then say, well, yeah, I see that. You're all in this market thing. I'm just going to step to the side a little and hoist my flag as a guide that is more required, I believe, in the consciousness realm. People call it spirituality, people call it metaphysics, call it whatever. It's on the higher wisdom plane, being able to bring that higher wisdom to the world as it is now. In that, and I'm going to use the word grace again, in the grace of helping people to have more understanding about how limiting beliefs work and how lack works and low self-worth. Because you can see their shadows writ large, because you've been through it and you can spot them, is all that I think is happening, is that you've been there, done the work. I'll give you an example. I was doing a Reiki treatment, a Reiki attunement with someone a few years ago, and I was explaining Reiki principles and what I thought were quite complex concepts around energy work and chakras And this person who was only in their 30s was like, yeah, I get that. And they've not done any of that work before, but they were going, yeah, I get it. And I'm just like, can I just stop you a minute? And they're saying, well, I said, do you really get it? Because you seem to be getting it really quickly. I said, and you're the second younger person that has done this with me. My own son, actually, we had a conversation for 10 minutes about a concept, and he got it. And I said, how come you got that in 10 minutes? I said, and it took me whatever. So my son just shrugged and said, I don't know. But this other person, this younger woman, said, the way I see it is people like you cut a path through the thorny forest so that people like me can do it easier and quicker.
Yeah.
And that teaching from a 30-odd-year-old to me, who's this master Reiki teacher, the humility of the curiosity to ask, cut through any of my egoic block. I was realizing that I must take instruction from people that, like 20-year-olds, 30-year-olds, who are in that place where I forgot what it's actually like. I can have memories, but I'm not in it. They're embodying it. I'm not. They remind me what it's like to be that age, literally. Much easier, much better, and more clearly than I can remember being that age. Because my memories are faded, they are tainted by my ego. It's the past. My past is that place long ago. There now has to be connected to my now. So I have to open up and be humble enough to take tuition from a novice, so that I might see them as a novice. I have to take tuition from a novice by using empathy and saying, so what's that like for you? And I've been through the inquiry that you went through, because when you get older, you get all the stuff and you want to get it out and you think, oh, great, you've got this new baby that you've created, you want to go and show it to the world, you know. And then when you maybe have your second, third, fourth child, well, you don't bother so much about showing it off, because you've been there, done it. You become blasé, you become more cynical. And that is just a process of, for me, aging. One has to, I believe, look out for excessive cynicism, or, you know.
Yeah.
And be very open to what's it like for them in that world. But for me, more importantly, how wonderful is it that 20 and 30-year-olds are wanting to do it? When I was 20 and 30, I was so blooming wrapped up in myself and so selfish. All right, I'm sure there were people my age who wanted to go out there and be teachers. There were people who wanted to go out there and be therapists. It's, for me, a very similar thing. A lot of youngsters wanting to make the world a better place.
Yeah.
And that is lovely, to think that my future obviously is downhill. You know, there's no argument about it. I'm not going uphill to middle age. I'm downhill now. You know, walking towards wherever I'm walking to. What am I going to leave behind? Am I going to leave behind a world that at the mercy of the predator? Or am I going to see that there are so many wonderful youngsters with that beautiful open heart wanting to serve?
One of the biggest lessons I got thinking of, you know, reframing stuff is for my NVQ6 in career guidance, I was asked to do a group work, and I chose it with a charity that deals with the hardest to help kids, and a lot of them are, well, hardest to help from a whole big bunch of reasons. And there was one kid who was lying with his head on his hands like this, and occasionally would pop his head up, answer a question and go back down again. Now, I could have got irritated by that, but I wasn't. I just let him be. And although I was doing career guidance, because that was what I was being observed in, I also brought in numerology, and I brought in finding your internal voice and, listening to your own wisdom. I brought in a few woo-woo things, as some people would say, because I couldn't do it if I just did it a cold careers advice session. Couldn't done it. And I really was scared about doing that, because it was like, well, this is a careers advice and guidance observed session, and your MVQ could be decided on this, but I still had to be real. And at the end, I got the teenagers to write on yellow stickies a couple of things that they'd learned. And a couple of them were brave enough to tell me. And actually, I found that the ones that were the hardest to help and the ones that were the most neurologically different got the woo-woo side of it. And it just makes me, sitting here in the moment, think, well, do we come in more woo-woo and we shut it down and we give ourselves a gagging order, and we try to be, or I did, try to be, like the majority, and fail completely and utterly dismally, and then gradually pick up our fragmented selves, find our own inner alchemy, and become who we were in the first place.
I think so. The world is full of people who don't want anything to do with woo-woo. I'm worrying here that my earphones have lost their charge. Bear with me a sec. Sorry, this is real. This is imperfection here. Can you hear me now?
Yep.
Thank you. Ditch the headphones. I hadn't charged them up properly. So where was I?
People don't like woo-woo.
Yeah, the world is full of people who don't want anything to do with the woo-woo side of life. And there are many people who align with the more esoteric and metaphysical understandings. There could be a massive conversation about that in and of itself. I think
Yes,
it's not
please.
a case of science. I think it's a case of bringing your higher wisdom. For me, anyway, it's a case of bringing my higher wisdom that I gain from the woo-woo and not selling woo-woo. So it's, what am I selling? I'm selling transformation. And transformation in and of itself, when you look at a lot of the psychological ways of doing it, different ways of doing it, there are different leaders in psychology, and some are very anti-woo-woo. But there is Carl Jung, there is even James Hillman, I think Marion Woodman, Dr. Clarissa Pinkola Estes. There are many, many, many experts in psychology who understand the connection with the metaphysical. And one particular one, I can't remember his name, but he invented something called psychosynthesis, which was Jungian, but went beyond. Jung died, for me, before he'd really, really got to his shamanic power. He died, he passed away. I don't believe he'd completed his shamanic journey, but he passed down a legacy where some of the other psychoanalysts picked it up and ran with it. And the guy is Roberto, he's an Italian.
Acciaioli.
That's him, Acciaioli. Yeah. And he brought forward psychosynthesis, which for me ended my cognitive dissonance or my conflict within, which I can feel that you might be having. As soon as I discovered that it is a real thing in psychology, psychosynthesis, I thought, right, I'm not in that band of people who exclude the woo at all. But
I
if
can't
anybody comes
exclude
at
it,
me
it
and
just comes
says,
out.
if anyone comes and says, "Oh, you can't be bringing that forward in your work," and I say, "Well, I follow the psychosynthesis model. If I was going to follow a model at all, I would follow that psychosynthesis model because that's who I am, and that's fine. I'm not trying to sell woo. I'm sharing transformation, conscious coach, doing, I think, possibly the same end result as yourself. We're just doing it in different ways. So your specialism is your specialism, formed by your own lived experience, whether that involves this, that, or the other, whatever it involves. Mine involves other things that form me. So as I get to full integration, I look back on my bits of lead, if that makes sense. And I see where each of those bits of lead have turned into gold. So it's almost like lots of nuggets of gold. It's not just one.
Yeah.
And then integrating them into a beautiful creation from all that gold, bringing it into fusion. And it's fusing with my divine spark. And this is it. This is who it is. People can hear what I say and they can judge that. And it's not for them. And that's absolutely fine. I do believe your service is incredibly valuable. The way you do it, how you decide it's going to look going forward. One question I'd like to ask you is, before I publish this, will you give me your links that I can share in the bump that goes beneath the video when I share it on YouTube?
Yeah. Tell me which
And then
ones you
people
want.
can contact you. Yeah, you just share me your links and I'll create the bump
Yeah.
around it. That's fantastic. Because if anybody would like to work with you, would you say at this moment in time, and that might change as you mature in your own service, but at this moment in time, would you say that what is up and running and ready to go is your speciality around helping autistic family dynamics?
Yeah, I've got a website which I can give you afterwards.
Brilliant.
Autismfamilydynamics.uk. I'm having a tad of trouble with my calendar links, so I won't go there. And it might be because I don't use an electronic calendar myself, so maybe there's some resistance. But the links weren't working when I tried them the other day.
They will need to be connected to.
Yeah.
an
So
online calendar.
if people can make contact through that,
Yeah.
or if they just want to look up Sue Bailey, you can see my face, you can see my name on the screen, and look up, on Facebook, LinkedIn. It's pretty clear what I look like. It's pretty clear what my name is.
Is it
And
Instagram as well?
Huh?
Is it Instagram as well?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. So, and usually it's Sue Bailey or Sue_Bailey_3, or it's and my email, my personal email is Sue_Bailey_3. So if you find things like start with that beginning, that's me. And having seen my face here, should be pretty easy to find my picture on Facebook or Instagram or LinkedIn.
That's fantastic. So I'm going to wind it up now, and thank you so very, very much for bringing such a beautiful new light to my world around this subject that you are so passionate about and how you bring it. So thank you.
Welcome.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.